All right, so I have with us here today Brad from the Richmond Cycling Corps. How are you, Brad?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm happy to have you here and to share more about what your organization does in the Richmond area. So, you say that cycling is your platform for change. Your organization has a passion for being a positive impact on kids in the heart of public housing. Can you tell us what initially inspired this organization to be created?
Yeah, so our founder, Craig Dodson, was a professional cyclist and he was ready to give back and he thought that was the right thing to do. And so he wanted to work with kids and he wanted to work with underprivileged youth. And so he went to the East End, which is where most of the housing projects here in Richmond exist. And he just started working with kids and we've been staying on that track working with kids in the East End since 2010.
That's great. And as an organization, including the youth you work with, your battle cry is "Can't stop, won't stop." Can you tell us more about this and how it motivates both your team and those who participate in the programs?
Yeah, so to think about it in terms of cycling, we're competing in races across the state of Virginia, and our kids have expectations for themselves, but it's always it's a competition, so you never know what's going to happen. And so, like this weekend, we had a race, and one of our kids was doing great. He moved up towards the top of the pack, and then he fell down, right, and lost a bunch of spots, and was discouraged because he thought he was going to have like this great race, but that was going to happen. And then he kind of had the decision to make, right? It was either going to be coast and just kind of make it through the race, or continue fighting and continue really grinding. And he did the latter. He went for it. He continued sprinting, continued going through the race and trying to make up as many spots as he could. That's kind of what we think of in terms of cycling. And then as an organization, the mission that we're on, working with kids that mostly live in public housing and living here in Richmond, in the East End is where our kids, mostly live. And that's where, Richmond right now has the sixth highest concentration of public housing in America. And that concentration of public housing means a high concentration of poverty. And so like for us, that means that our mission, it can't stop because the issue for our kids isn't going to stop. Kids get born into generational poverty and it's hard to escape. And so we try to be an outlet for youth to see something different.
That's awesome. And on your website, you say that your team has fun. You laugh, you teach, and you have a passion for being a positive impact on these kids in the heart of public housing. How important would you say it is that to the kids who participate that they be met with this type of lighthearted and supportive approach?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to really get on their level and invest in them, because until you really get there and dig in and be present with them, you're not going to make any progress. If you show up once, they're not going to give you any time of day, right? And so until you really make that investment in them and show them that you care and that you're going to come back day after day and week after week, then you can actually make real change and real difference in some of their lives.
Yeah, I would imagine that some may be hesitant to jump on board with this. How does your outreach actually work? Like, how do you get kids involved and enrolled and in the program?
Yeah, mostly it's word of mouth, whether that's a neighbor, a friend, or a counselor from school or a teacher at school that kind of recommends them to our organization. And then it's, let's try hopping on a bike. Let's see if you like this or not. And some kids, start at different levels, right? Some kids are very hesitant and it's hard. Like the trails that we ride are not easy. So it's fun to see, how they're going to compete initially. And then it's really fun to see kind of their progress. Cause when you have kids that really haven't ridden a mountain bike and haven't done any trails like myself was, a year ago, it's hard. It's intimidating, but we'd like to say that if you can get good at cycling, then you can get good at anything else. And that's what is great to see is the kids that really improve on the bike and their confidence grows and that they can do so much else.
Yeah, it's great that clearly pushing yourself in that way to do something so outside the box, I would imagine transcends into so many other areas of your life and I'm sure that's part of your mission too, right? It's that it's really not just about the cycling.
Yeah, yeah.
Your mission statement says that you are, your mission is to educate and empower the lives of Richmond youth in the heart of the East End by constantly pivoting towards relevant outreach. Can you tell us more about those 5 spokes of the RCC wheel: community, education, empowerment, health and wellness, and individual support?
Yeah, like you said, and like, our mission statement reads, cycling isn't a part of that. And it's because we're not a cycling organization. We have cycling programs, but our mission is to make a greater impact than improving people on a bike. And so that's why you kind of see the 5 spokes of the RCC wheel, and that starts with community. We want to be invested here in Richmond. And so in 2014, built a bike park right in the heart of public housing in between a elementary school and a high school. And that's kind of been our home since then, and try to make a difference right in our community. And then next you have education, which has always been a central piece for RCC. We have invested in terms of educational, in terms of hiring someone to be a tutor. And when our youth needed more, we developed a homeschool co-op in terms of helping people graduate from high school. And so we had 8 graduates graduate from our Legacy Academy, and that helped them go on to college and other jobs as well. And then you have employment, which is also big, and we want to make sure that our time with our youth isn't stopping when they either get out of our program or graduate from high school. We are making sure that they get to the next step of their lives, and that means making sure that they're employed. And then health and wellness, obviously cycling is very beneficial to people's health. That's kind of pretty easy to understand, but the structures of public housing are also, causing a lot of problems health-wise for people. And, us taking them to green spaces, getting them outside more, getting them in nature, getting them away from, phones and TV and doing something physical. All these things really make an impact on a betterment of someone's life. And then individual support. We don't really stop in terms of, when we, stop working with kids. And so we take kids to doctor's appointments, or, we help a kid get his driver's license. Another kid that is still in high school that doesn't ride with us anymore, but we helped her get her permit, or, help people look for housing, look for jobs. All these things go into what we do at RCC.
I love that it goes so far beyond just the cycling aspect, and that you're working with kids even if they're not entirely in the program, in terms of like being on a bike. And that it's very clear that your mission really is to serve this community as best you can. And I think it's really powerful what you guys are doing. I had a question for you personally, because your role here at the 4-year role here at RCC, you spent 12 years scouting NFL players for the Oakland Raiders. How would you say this new role has most significantly impacted you? Like, how does this work really move you?
Yeah, so my last few years, working with the Raiders and traveling as many days as I was traveling, you got to a sense of, what am I doing with my days? And I'm, doing a lot to try to win a football game. And now I get to understand that I'm spending my time trying to make an impact, and you can see it, day by day and, week by week in terms of, the people that we're with, and you get to see that growth. And I think that's the most rewarding part, is to see where someone was 6 months ago, to see where someone is now. It's really cool to see our kids, who are just great kids, just see them just grow and develop and get more confident in everything about their lives.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought it was fascinating how you came from that role to this, but I would imagine that there's some sort of levels of crossover in what you do in terms of outreach and, that side of things. But I would imagine, and that's why I asked, that it probably impacts you more on like a compassionate level, more an emotional level, being able to see these kids grow and thrive. So what is it that you value most about this organization and the impact that you are all striving to achieve?
I think what I value most is where we're serving and the people that we're serving. We work with, public housing. We're in public housing. We're there, almost 7 days out of the week. and there's not a lot of organizations that are there. There are organizations close, and there's organizations working with, people in poverty and inner city youth, but there's not a lot of people working with the people that we're serving. And the youth that are born into it, right? They're there at nothing that they did, and they deserve more. And I'm glad that we're giving them more opportunities.
I'm glad that you are too. That kind of just gave me the chills as you were explaining that, because like you said, there's resources available, but there isn't always like boots on the ground in the space, like every day helping. So on this podcast, we often discuss the topics of community and compassion, which both seem to align very well with your organization's mission and efforts. Can you tell us what your own personal definition of compassion is and how you think it best relates to the work that RCC does?
I think we talk a lot about meeting people where they are instead of meeting people where you want them to be. I think it's a big difference. Instead of me coming to a situation with all my baggage and all my preconceived notions about someone or something, and dropping all that and just understanding and learning about the person that I'm with. And I think that's what we try to do. And it's hard being a nonprofit organization that kind of thinks more about that than about maybe a metric or an outcome. A lot of grants or donors are asking for outcomes, right? What are you measuring that was successful? And if that was the case, we wouldn't try to do what we do. We wouldn't try to do a quality over quantity. We want to make a deep impact on these 10 kids rather than make a small impact on 100 kids. And that's harder to sell to maybe a donor, but for our 10 kids, it's about being where they are and what they need, and that's just being present.
Yeah, I think that's like a really important point that you just made about the quality over quantity, because you're right. I think a lot of nonprofits sometimes are forced to operate in that way because of, however they gauge their support. But just from my own perspective too, as a nonprofit director, I know I've learned over the past 10 years that I used to get upset about the thought that like I couldn't reach hundreds of thousands of patients, right, who are dealing with the disease that I'm advocating for. But then I came to realize it's really about, if you're giving to those 10 kids and you're giving your all to those 10 kids, or for me, if I'm giving my all to 10 patients, there really is so much coming from that is basically a ripple effect, right? Like the impact that you're making on those 10 kids' lives will actually impact hundreds, maybe thousands of people going forward. And a lot of that has to do with the fact of what you and your organization are pouring into them now. So that's really special. How can my listeners best support the mission of RCC? How can they get involved, and how do donations help to drive your efforts?
Yeah, so I would say, like, first off, equipment, right? Most of our biking equipment or apparel or, all the accessories that come with biking are donations, whether that's from an individual donating an old bike, or it's a corporation, small or large, donating, really excellent bikes, or a smaller corporation that is maybe donating gloves or hats or jackets. All those things are things that would, help an organization like ours that's small and local. And, if you're local, we'd love to see you around in terms of helping. If you're in the biking community, we have, need for volunteers that can help out on rides, and also help out in terms of helping us, get meals or prepare meals or deliver meals to, whenever we finish rides or start rides. And then, obviously dollars, right? We're a nonprofit that focuses mostly on individuals, and most of our income comes from individuals. And, monthly donations, is however small that is, can make a large difference. Like if you could donate $50 a month, that's $600 for the year. And that's a large gift for a small organization like ours.
Yeah, that's really important to note, that a little goes a long way. So lastly, can you tell us where we could go to donate and how we can best follow along with your ongoing mission?
Yeah, you can follow us and find us, richmondcyclingcorp.org. That's our website. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for on there that we try to make it a little bit more personal and give a little bit more information on our kids and more stories. And then we're active on Instagram and Facebook at Richmond Cycling Corps. And we would love to get the support, whether that's a follow, a like, a share, all that goes a long way. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I will share in the show notes all of those links, and I encourage everyone who's listening to just really look into further what it is that you're doing, and I'm sure they'll be inspired to support, because your mission is really important and the work you're doing is really valuable to that community. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for taking interest in our organization and helping share our story.